just let me know if you see questions that people aren't able to see it. So what is the need to do this orientation? We started doing these orientations a couple of years ago because we felt like students just needed a little bit more information to be able to make a decision. It is a big decision to participate in Running Start, especially if you are currently a sophomore in high school, second semester sophomore. You're making a decision really that's going to have an impact on the next 2 years of high school and even beyond high school. So it's a significant decision to be in the Running Start program, and so for that reason we wanted to make sure that we touch upon important items that will help make a decision for you. The why behind wanting to do Running Start is also important, and when kids come to my office, I always ask them, what is your why behind wanting to do the program? And really the answer to that should drive their decision. It really is kind of pushing kids a little bit too to look beyond the free college credit, because as we know, Running Start is a program that allows students to get college credit. The tuition is paid by the state, but really kind of pushing a little bit harder to kind of go beyond just that aspect of it and why you want to do Running Start. And then throughout tonight, we'll hopefully give you some useful tools that you can access for the program. So again, the participation agreement is what we'll kind of go through bullet by bullet. If you're able to access that. If not, don't worry about it. We'll make sure that you can get the agreement. I'll go through it in this PowerPoint. We want to make sure to again point out some resources that students can access to help them make the decision, but also how to access resources once they're in the Running Start program. So if we just kind of get right in it. Running Start students, once they make a decision, they're really making a decision to take classes away from Lewis and Clark High School and take courses on the college campus. So what that means a lot of times is that they may miss out on opportunities to stay informed of information, activities through advisory, through morning announcements. And so as part of the decision-making process, we want to make sure that students know the resources that they can access to stay informed of information from Lewis and Clark. So the lctigers.com website is a great way to stay informed of what's going on. We encourage students, especially seniors, once you get into your senior year as a Running Start student, to join Remind text notification. So Mr. Norton facilitates the Remind, and for the class of 2022, I've posted on there how you can join his Remind. He pushes out lots of information to help stay connected to LC. In the senior year, we try to send out postcards, one in the fall and one in the spring, just with important dates. Again, especially in that senior year, to keep students a little connected so they don't miss any important dates for ordering graduation items, for instance. And then the LC News you can use is a great resource for staying in tune to information that's going on at LC. So again, the key there is that making the decision to go off campus, LC's campus, and go on to college campus, but it's still the student's responsibility to reach out and connect with resources that can keep them informed of any kind of information. Running Start students are high school students, but they are treated as college students on their college campuses. And so they have the same rules and regulations as any college student, which also means that parents do not have access to any of your high school student records through the college portals. So that's an important piece that we'd like to point out. For parents that are used to being able to access PowerSchool and see frequently how your students are progressing at LC, you will not have the ability to do that same thing with their college courses. And so we really feel that it's important to, as you look into deciding about Running Start, to really develop a good communication plan with your student about the courses that they're taking, about their progress in the classes. Make sure that you're developing a good communication plan as you go into that. And then it's also important that students know a successful Running Start student will be able to self-initiate communication with faculty when necessary, when they feel like they need some more instruction, how to access other resources. If they're struggling in a class, it's important to, if you're going to venture off on and be a college student, to also know how to advocate for yourself and initiate conversations with faculty. Math and English placement. So in order for Running Start will cover the tuition of college courses that are 100 level and above. Anything below a 100 level will not be covered through the Running Start tuition. And so we want to make sure that one, students are ready for that college level courses. And so each of the college campuses between the two community colleges, so Spokane Falls Community College and Spokane Community College, as well as Eastern, will have a process that the students will go through to make sure that they are ready to be placed into 100 level courses. Most of the college campuses now have changed things a little bit, and so what they're using is a survey of sorts so that the students can self-place into English courses. The colleges will evaluate transcripts to support math placement. So they'll look and see what math course a student may have taken in high school to be able to help support, one, what level of math they may need at that college level, and if they're ready for a 100 level or above math placement. So again, the math will come through evaluation of a student's transcript. If a student has not completed Algebra 2 at LC, they will need to stay at LC to complete that Algebra 2 course. The Algebra 2 would be considered below a 100 level math placement, and so in order to fulfill that third-year math high school requirement, students will need to plan on completing Algebra 2 at LC. As we look at the calendars, so you know that LC is on a semester calendar system. So you know, the students have first semester, which starts at the beginning of the school year and then runs through the end of January. And at the end of January, those grades are final, and those grades will be placed on the transcript. They will start all over second semester. And then which will end at the end of the school year, and then those grades will go on their transcript. So LC is on a 2-semester calendar year. Each of the college campuses are on a quarter system. So what that means is that students will have 3 times throughout the school year, so fall quarter, winter quarter, and spring quarter, that they will register for new classes. At the end of each of those quarters, those grades will become their permanent grades, and they will start brand new classes that next quarter. So it's important to keep in mind that the calendars between the college system and the high school system do not necessarily match up. High school LC usually starts earlier than the college system, and then the end dates also vary by about a week. As well as vacation dates could vary. And one important vacation date to point out would be spring break. Spring break is always, the college spring break is usually a week before LC spring break. And so if a student is in a situation where they have maybe one LC class and then the rest are college courses, when it comes time to spring break, they essentially aren't going to get a spring break, because while the college is on spring break, LC is still in school, And while LC is on spring break, students at the college is just starting their spring quarter. So again, important to keep in mind the difference in the calendars, and it's important to also look ahead at the school calendar so that you can anticipate any of those big differences. We had a student a couple of years ago that didn't really pay attention to the spring break, and she had a planned spring break, and so went on the LC timed spring break without really realizing that was the week that her spring quarter started. And so when she returned from spring break, she had not attended her college courses, and they ended up dropping her. And she couldn't re-enroll. She couldn't enroll at LC courses because in April, we're almost at the tail end of our semester, and so that's not a starting point for LC to be enrolling in courses. So it was a tough kind of a little bit of a real world, oops, that student learned from. So pay attention to calendar coordination between the two systems. Participation commitment, we like for students, if they're going to commit, if they're going to start Running Start, to commit to at least a full year of Running Start. And again, that's because of the calendar differences. So if a student, started fall quarter, decided that it really is not a great fit, the Running Start is really not a great fit, and they wanted to return to LC. The end of the fall quarter is right at about winter break time, which is about December. And so again, as you know, December in LC is getting close to the end of that first semester. And so really don't have the ability at that time to be able to enroll students back into LC in January to finish out the semester. So again, if you're going to jump in and do Running Start, think about doing it for that full year before then make really kind of deciding if you want to continue on for that second year. Course registration, and so I mentioned on college, with the college campus, students will register for courses 3 times a year. So fall quarter, winter quarter, and spring quarter. Really, the course availability is a lot dependent, especially for the community colleges, dependent on where they fall within being able to register. So the community college students all register according to how many credits, how many college credits they have. So a brand new Running Start student registering for their fall quarter, very first fall quarter, is not going to have any college credits, and so they are going to be low on the list when it comes to registering. And so it's important for the student to pay attention to registration dates, when they can start registering, when those deadlines are to turn in any necessary paperwork, because if they miss those deadlines, the implications could be they're not able to register for particular courses that they need to meet high school requirements. And I'll cover that in a little bit. But the key here is that registration deadlines are important to pay attention to, especially at the community college. Eastern Running Start students have a bit of an advantage because they get to register first. So Eastern Running Start students will get priority above everybody else, which is nice. Community college students, Running Start students, again, kind of go by the amount of credits, college credits that you have. We also like to remind students that once you start Running Start, you are now generating not only a high school transcript, but a college transcript as well. So once you complete a quarter at the college, you have now started a college transcript. the high school will get sent that transcript, and then we will take those grades and add them to your high school transcript. So a student will have a high school transcript, which will reflect those college courses, and then they will also have a college transcript at that college campus with those grades as well. Those college transcripts, as well as the high school transcripts, will stay with you forever and ever. So it's important to, again, as you're making the decision, to keep in mind that as a junior in high school that may be starting the Running Start program, I am now generating a college transcript. And what kind of implications that could have if, if courses don't go so well, down the road as far as what the transcripts could look like. It's also important as we look at monitoring course selection, and I'll cover that in a little bit too. We put a lot of responsibility on the student to understand high school requirements that they may have left, and then to also make sure that they know the right courses that they need to register for on that college campus to fulfill the high school requirements. They will work together with their high school counselor to be able to review and go through the high school requirements, but it really is up to the student, especially again at the community college, because they are registering on their own. They're building their schedule, they're picking their classes, and so it's important that they have that understanding of the courses that they need to, college courses that they need to take to fulfill high school requirements. Once a student begins to participate in the Running Start program, they need to maintain a minimum 2.0 grade point average in their college courses. If they fall below that 2.0 grade point average, they could be put on academic probation, be given an academic warning, and usually that means a conversation with a counselor on the college campus. They may come up with a success plan together. If that next quarter they again fall below that 2.0 grade point average, they could be asked to return back to the high school and not allowed to register for that spring quarter. That, as we talked before, the calendar does not work out well in the spring to be able to come back and join high school courses. So, and implications could mean that they're missing out on second semester courses of high school as well as spring quarter classes, which then could put them behind on high school credits. I've had a couple of students that happened to this year. They were not able to register for spring quarter classes through Running Start, and we also were not able to get them enrolled in second semester courses at LC. Fortunately, they're juniors, and so they may have a little bit of some opportunity next year as seniors to be able to recoup and get back on track with credits. But they are going to have to scramble next year to stay on track. And I don't know if I had said this before. I know as we're going through these bullets, I always feel like it's I'm trying to talk students out of Running Start, and that's not what I'm trying to do. Again, it's an important decision that a student makes, and want to make sure that that these items are really thought through carefully so that a student and family can make a good decision, because there could be implications. The biggest one, of course, would be graduation. Staying on track to graduate on time could be in jeopardy. So not trying to talk out, but just again trying to hit all of these big pieces so that can make a good decision. Spokane Public Schools determines a course equivalency, and I'll show you what that means in a minute. So students can access Running Start starting their junior year. We know that there's still high school requirements that they still need to fulfill, and so we have conversations with those Running Start students about the college courses that that they need to take to be able to fulfill their remaining high school requirements. And so there's a course equivalency that Spokane Public School District has determined will fulfill the high school requirements. They Running Start students are still responsible for fulfilling not only the credit requirement, so the 24 credits, but also still responsible for fulfilling the high school and beyond plan, the graduation pathway, as well as Washington State history graduation requirements. So still responsible for all of the other graduation requirements that that our school district and state hold. And so again, we'll work with the student so that there's a good understanding of their high school requirements, but really monitoring that progress, responsibility falls on the student. And we're hoping that comes along with that some conversations with parent guardian as well, and looking at their graduation progress. So here is the Running Start equivalency guide. And so one side you'll see the community college equivalency. You'll see the high school requirements on the left, and then you'll see the college courses that a student has to take to fulfill those high school requirements. And then on the other side is the same type of form for an Eastern Running Start student. So again, the high school requirements, and then the specific college courses that they need to take to fulfill those high school requirements. A community college student, of course, can also work toward completing requirements for an Associate of Arts degree. We always say really their high school credits need to drive their registration each quarter, but also to keep in mind those requirements for the AA degree as well, because with some good planning, they can certainly graduate from high school with that AA degree from the community college as well. So the documentation that a student needs each quarter to be able to register for courses, this has changed a little bit this year for the community college. So Eastern, those Running Start students at Eastern will need to meet with their high school counselor each quarter and complete what's called an enrollment verification form. And that form is the student brings to their high school counselor with the courses listed that they are going to register for that next quarter. It gives us a chance, the student and the high school counselor, a chance to again review graduation requirements, look at the classes that they plan on enrolling in, also to make sure that they're falling within the correct FTE. And so I'll point that out on the next slide. The EVF is required before a student can register for their college courses. So again, kind of watching and making sure that they're turning the EVF back into their college counselor by the deadline so that a hold can be released and they can register for their courses. The community college is going away from the EVF, so that enrollment verification form, and they are now just requiring a yearly graduation plan. And the graduation plan, again, is an opportunity for high school counselor and student to sit down, review the graduation requirements, make sure that the student understands where they're at with their requirements, and can talk about the courses that they plan to enroll in for that next quarter. We are still requiring that community college students also meet quarterly with their high school counselor. Even though we don't need to do the EVF, we really feel that it's important to meet with the Running Start students every quarter, again, to review graduation plan, to talk about classes that they plan on enrolling in. Especially at the community college, because when we have those conversations about what do you think you want to take for fall quarter, when they leave our office, it still could be a few weeks before they actually go through the process of registering for classes. So we may talk about registering for a history class, but by the time that student gets to register, that history class may be full. And so that's where they need to make sure that they really have a good understanding. I can't take that history class, so maybe instead I'll register for a political science class that will fulfill this other requirement. They need to, that's where the understanding of graduation requirements that they have left, and then the courses that the college courses they need to take to fulfill those high school requirements is very important. Student responsibility to submit the EVF and the grad plan on time, paying attention to deadlines. And it's important to make appointments with the counselors to come in and get either the EVF or the grad plan completed. If a student just drops in to the student office to see the counselor, they're really kind of gambling whether or not that counselor is available to sit and have that conversation. So it's important for students to make appointments for those meetings. So here are the forms that I had talked about. On the left side is the Running Start grad plan that the community college now requires. And so again, we'll list through the course requirements that they've already completed, and we'll also include those requirements that they still need to be working on. The right side is the Eastern enrollment verification form, and you can see this is the form that students will bring to us. The counselors will indicate if a student is enrolled in any high school course, and then we'll see the college courses that they plan on enrolling in for that next quarter. We also are monitoring a student. You'll see a little graph on the eastern side. All of the college campuses have the similar graph, which really just indicates how many credits a student can enroll in between the college campus and the high school campus combined. So with the idea that the max number of college credits they can enroll in is 15. If they enroll in 15 college credits, which is essentially 3 academic classes, they can still enroll in 1 high school course at LC and fall within the allotted, what we call FTE. If they want to enroll in 15 college credits, but they really want to keep 2 LC classes, then they will go over the allowed FTE, and the student will be charged an overage of the college tuition. So part of a conversation that we have with students as well is, if you don't want to have to pay that overage, then let's talk about how we can keep you within the allotted FTE between college credit and high school credit. Again, pointing them back into kind of that why. Why do you want to do Running Start? Because that also is going to really have an impact on the number of credits that they want to sign up for each quarter at the college campus. If a student has a 504 accommodation plan in place, that 504 plan can be taken to the college campus and processed through with the disability support services. And so the college campus can then work with that student and the 504 plan to be able to continue to meet the accommodations at the college campus. It's the student's responsibility to get the 504 plan from the high school and then take it to the college to connect with the disability support services. This is a big one that usually raises some questions. So credits transferring and how they may apply to a 4-year college once that student graduates from high school. So Running Start credits may not be universally transferable, especially if a student is looking at out-of-state colleges. It may out-of-state colleges may get a little bit more picky on how they apply credits to their system. Not that they wouldn't be given the credit, but maybe a history class at Spokane Falls Community College doesn't transfer directly into a history core requirement at Montana State University. Maybe it falls under an elective credit. We like to be able to point this out to students and really encourage them to, if they have colleges in mind that they would like to apply to when they graduate from high school, really encourage some of that research now, some of that communication now with college admissions officers to ask the question, how will you accept transfer credit from Spokane Falls Community College? Or how will you accept transfer credit from Eastern Washington University? Keeping in mind as well, if a Running Start student is at the community college and they are working toward that Associate of Arts degree, if they're able to complete that 90 credit Associate of Arts degree, they will have a much higher likelihood of having those credits transfer as a package to a four-year college easier. If they end up a little bit short of that AA degree, so maybe they end up with 80 credits, not a full 90 credit, and then they go to apply to WSU or Central, those colleges then may kind of pick and choose which courses that they will transfer into their core requirements, which then will fall under elective. So again, the key thing here is to do some research for potential colleges to be able to ask those questions before you would start Running Start in the fall. And again, a lot of you may be second semester in your sophomore year and have no idea what colleges you may be interested in, which is absolutely fine. But again, just pointing out some information to kind of help make some decisions along the way. We've heard from schools like University of Washington as you're going through some of this decision-making process, if some highly selective colleges, if they are looking at a Running Start student compared to a student that has multiple AP courses on their transcript, they may tend to lean a little bit more toward that student with the AP courses versus a student that has Running Start credit on their transcript. Reason being, they meaning the college admissions officers, know what AP curriculum is. The AP curriculum is standard across the United States, and so when they see an AP English Lit course on a student transcript along with a grade, they know what that means. When they see an English 101 course on a student transcript, they don't necessarily know what that curriculum is from Eastern Washington University or from Spokane Falls. So again, just some information as you're making the decision. Also, how that could be impacted as when you graduate and go to apply to four-year colleges. As a Running Start student, you are still eligible for all LC sports and activities. You are still an LC student. Just because you want to do Running Start doesn't mean that you are booted out from LC. You have the opportunity to participate in sports, extracurricular activities, come back for cons, all those kinds of things you are still eligible for. You're also eligible for most college and university activities as well. And we've had in the past, we've had Running Start students that have even been able to be a part of student government as a Running Start student as well. Running Start program costs. So the college university tuition is covered by the state up to 15 credits, so tuition free, which is, I know, a huge bonus. Again, they will only pay for 100 level and above courses. Anything below 100 level is not covered through Running Start. Student responsibilities as far as fees include books. Books they need to pay for, any kind of lab fees, parking fees, transportation fees. There's usually technology fees per quarter that are also student responsibilities. Every fall, it seems like I get emails from students say, why do I have this bill of a couple $100s? Well, that usually is the miscellaneous fees that the student is responsible for. If a student qualifies for free or reduced lunch, they could have the opportunity to have those fees waived. And so we direct them to nutrition services with the school district for that verification letter that they can take to college campus, and that could help waive some of those quarterly fees. I also wanted to point out here, fall, winter, spring quarter is covered. The tuition is covered. We have some students that want to take summer quarter classes just so that they can, especially at the community colleges, so that they can stay on track with the AA degree. Summer quarter is not covered by the Running Start program, and so that would be a student responsibility to pay for summer quarter tuition. They still will get high school credit for those courses, but the tuition they need to cover on their own. Running Start grades are not factored into to weighted GPA. So students may know that if they take an honors or an AP course, those are weighted higher toward their high school GPA. Running Start grades are not weighted any heavier. They're weighted just the same as all of the other high school courses. So that's something to keep in mind for some students that are working toward, maybe being a summa cum laude, when they graduate from high school. Also, as you look at, weighted GPA for college admissions or scholarship purposes, again, those Running Start grades are not weighted any heavier toward that GPA. And then the last bullet on here just has to do with the timing, again, with the different calendar systems and graduation. So spring quarter will usually run about a week past high school graduation. So if a student is enrolled in spring quarter classes on the college campus that they still need to fulfill a high school requirement, they'll still be able to go through graduation ceremonies. Their diploma will be awarded once they complete those college courses, and we receive the transcript which shows that they've completed that college course to apply toward a high school requirement. We try to target the best we can for students to finish all of their high school requirements by the completion of that winter quarter. So that spring quarter, they can take any further credits that they may need for the AA degree, but not have to worry about the high school credits because those are already completed. We know that doesn't work out all the time, but that's a target that we like to shoot for, to have their high school requirements completed by winter quarter. So some resources and supports for Running Start students, of course, is going to be their high school counselor, college and career specialist Jeff Norton, and important especially in the senior year to keep in contact with him. And we really encourage seniors to join that Remind text system because he will send out lots of information through that system throughout the senior year. College admissions information, financial aid information, seminars, webinars that he may be having around college admissions. As we move further into the spring now, he's starting to send out reminders to seniors about graduation activities. It's a good way to stay connected a little bit. Like I mentioned earlier, we try to do a postcard in the fall and again in the spring to let seniors know about any deadlines coming up. And then the LC News you can use as a great resource to stay connected to LC as well as our website. Just to touch on really quick, if a student hasn't started the Running Start process yet, they need to start. For the community college, they would get online and complete the community college application. They need to have the high school transcript sent to the community college, and so that takes coming into the student office and requesting their transcript be sent to the community college by the secretary there in the student office. And then from there, they need to check their email for the next steps that they'll need to complete at the community college, which will include an online orientation and then a completion of their community college disclaimer form. As I mentioned before, the LC participation agreement needs to be returned to the high school counselor. So that can be electronically signed or it can be printed and signed as well and brought back to the high school counselor. And then the last step will be making an appointment to review the grad plan with the high school counselor. As far as Eastern, completing the Running Start application online, parent will be emailed an online approval. The counselor will also be emailed an online approval. The student will again need to request a transcript from the student office. However, it will be the student's responsibility to upload that transcript to their Eastern student portal. Once the application is reviewed and approved, the student will receive email with the next steps that they'll need to take through Eastern. And then again, the same thing, they will need to return that participation agreement to the high school counselor. So that concludes that part of it. If at this time we have, I guess, some questions, maybe Alana, that I don't know if we can go through.
So we've got some questions. One was who we submitted the participation agreement to. So I will post all of our counselor emails in the chat after this, so then you can click on the one that's right for you. Will classes taken at LC grades still be available to view on PowerSchool? So for like their math class, for example, would that still be able to be viewed on PowerSchool?
Yes, so their LC courses are still available to view. It's just the college courses that a student can get onto their Canvas. At the community college, they use Canvas, and so a student could look and usually kind of see their grade progress. Just a parent doesn't have access to that for their college courses, but a parent will still have access to PowerSchool to check that grade.
And then when do you register for your EWU or SFCC classes? And then specific to EWU, what does their letter of rec mean for their application and why was that waived?
So registration, so if we look at kind of right now the timing, the community colleges will start their fall registration May 24th. And so the first students that will be able to register, again, are going to be the students with 30 or more credits. And so I'm doing some of those grad plans right now with current Running Start students at the community college. I'm also going through enrollment verification forms for Eastern students, current students. New students to Eastern will continue to work their way through the process throughout spring. They probably won't. They usually aren't able to register for their classes until summertime. But again, they have priority registration. So so they'll still get kind of first dibs on registration, but the timing of it is a little bit longer for those first, kind of the first go around for Eastern students. And then that next part of that, the letter of recommendation.
Letter of recommendation, and why is it waived?
So, so Eastern now has a counselor recommendation. So, and I'm not sure if that's what this is referring to, but the parent will need to approve an Eastern Running Start application. Part of that approval process will be listing their high school counselor, and then the high school counselor will get emailed a counselor recommendation. And so we just go in on online and approve that student's application. That's a new process this year. And so again, I don't know if that's what that question is referring to, or if there's another letter that we didn't used to have to do letters of recommendation. We just would sign their applications. And so now it's all just an online kind of approval.
And so then, still talking about applications, are there application deadlines?
Yes, so Eastern has a June 1st deadline. The community colleges is I can't remember. It's a little bit later. But what we tell students is by the time they wrap up for the school year, they should have all of that information submitted to the community college. But Eastern does have a June 1st deadline to submit that application.
For students taking a class or classes through Gonzaga, is there a similar process to this?
So Gonzaga is not one of the colleges that participates in the Running Start program, meaning if a student wants to enroll in their they call it dual enrollment program, that student has to pay for the tuition. So it's a similar process as far as an application that a student fills out, and the counselor does have to submit a kind of an okay permission letter that a student can take a course at Gonzaga, but the tuition is sole responsibility of the student. We have students that access Gonzaga primarily for like a higher level math class that they can't access at LC. And so that's a lot of the students that access Gonzaga. Otherwise, they can access the other college campuses and be able to get that tuition paid for.
The next question, well, I'm going to combine two of them. One was, is it 15 credits per quarter? And then if a student takes 3 courses at the community college or Eastern and 1 course at LC, would that be extra charges?
Right, so 15 credits are allowed each quarter. And so again, at any of the college campuses, most of their academic classes are going to be worth 5 credits. So a full-time student would be 15 credits or 3 college courses. With 15 credits, they are still allowed to take 1 LC course. They could do that at LC or they could do that through SVL and still be within the allowed FTE.
This is a new one because of this year. Will students still have access to SPS laptops while they're doing Running Start?
Oh, for next year? Yeah, that's a great question. I am going to assume that they will, but that's a question that I will need to find out because yeah, that's a new one.
I know, I haven't heard that one either.
Mm-hmm.
More about registration. EWU's website says that priority registration is for the fall of 2021 is May 26th at 7 a.m. Does that also include for Running Start students?
No, I think that is for seniors that are graduating and applying to Eastern, and that is an extended priority application deadline, because I know students are still making decisions. So hold on to that June 1st for Running Start should still be okay for Eastern, for applying for Running Start at Eastern.
And the last one that I see on here is how many credits are needed for an AA?
The AA is a total of 90 credits. And those credits are going to come, there'll be certain areas that are required. So similar to high school requirements, there will be so many requirements that that might fall under like a communications or English, so many credits that would be math and science, so many credits that would be like a history or social studies course, even PE and health is required for that AA degree. So it's a total of 90 credits. Kind of broken down into content areas, and you can, if you get on the community college websites and just do a search for an Associate of Arts degree, you can see that worksheet that lays out the specific credits needed for that.
Okay, and if I didn't answer or I missed one, just send it back in again, because there's a couple more popping up at the bottom. Do we know whether or not the community colleges will be online next year? If not, any ideas when we will know?
The last that I heard, they were hoping to be online. There hasn't been anything that in my last meetings that has given that for sure indication that they will be in person, or whether they'll be still online. So that I think they're still determining. As far as the timing, I think it's just going to kind of depend on how we're doing for for our for our county, and we may go through through the summer with without kind of really knowing what that'll look like. Quite honestly, we may go through the summer and not know what LC classes are going to look like as well. So it may just be one of those kind of stay tuned, and they'll release that information as soon as they can, but it may be into the summer before we officially know.
That is, oh, one more, hold on. One more popped in. What forms do I need to turn into my counselor at LC? You mentioned a form that I need to sign and turn it in. How do I acquire it?
So the LC participation agreement, which, again, hopefully you had access to through that Q&A link. If not, we also have in a list of attendees, and so if we have an opportunity to just access to the emails through this, we can email the participation agreement. Otherwise, you can certainly email your high school counselor, and they will have the agreements as well. They can be electronically signed and then just uploaded and emailed back to the high school counselor. Or they can be printed and the student can bring them into the student office as well, whichever's easiest. And then the grad plan for the community college, students, as they go through that online orientation, that's a required part of the process. During that orientation is when they will get access to the grad plan. So they have to go through that orientation to be able to get the grad plan, as well as there's a community college disclaimer form that looks real similar to our participation agreement that a student and parent have to initial and sign, and that needs to be returned back to the college. So both of those forms for the community college, they can access as they go through their online orientation. Any forms from Eastern, like the enrollment verification form, will come after they meet with the advisor at Eastern.
Anyone else have any other questions while I finish typing in each of our counseling email addresses? I'm not seeing anything else pop up.
All right. So we are also hoping that this webinar was recorded, that we can make available if you choose to rewatch it, or if you know a family that was not able to join tonight, we will make that available as well. Thank you for participating, and again, hopefully, it seems like when we would do this live, we always had a family or two that through this process has either solidified the decision, like, yep, this is it, or we've had some families that have changed their minds. And again, that's not the intent. The intent is just to provide as much information as we can so that student and family, with parents can make a good decision, because it is a big decision, especially as a second semester sophomore to decide then to attend courses, on these college campuses. So, and always feel free to reach out to your high school counselor if you have other questions along the way. I
do have one more question that popped up. Can you get your AA from EWU?
So the AA degree is a community college specific degree. It really covers kind of the first 2 years of your basic core requirements. So, if a student was graduating from high school and starting up at a community college, they may work toward that AA degree, knowing that they're going to transfer to a 4-year college. When they make that transfer to a 4-year college, they already have their basic requirements met, and so they can just jump right into their major. So that's what the AA degree is. At Eastern, you're also working toward core requirements. So they call it basic core classes, but it's not necessarily at the end of 2 years. You haven't necessarily earned a degree. You just have 2 years of core requirements met. So same idea, just kind of, it really, that AA degree, it really is specific for the community college.
And one last thing, is it possible to enroll in Running Start as a junior? Yes, you can enroll as a junior and just do it your senior year.
Yep. All right. Well, again, thank you for joining in, and hopefully, we'll be back in next year. Can we do this in person? Have a wonderful night, and feel free to reach out to your counselors if there's any other questions that come up along the way.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.